Hello and welcome to the my first recap of the West's best teams competing in the Four Nations Chess League from the first weekend, which is rounds 1 and 2. I'm just going to talk you through very quickly who we were playing against, what the results were, and just show up a couple of key moments and just a recap of generally the first weekend that happened in Daventry. It was a few weekends ago now, so my videos will become a lot sooner after the weekends happen. This kind of also like a bit of a precursor to what's coming up, because the rounds 3 and 4 are actually only just over a week away. In the first round, West's best one, we were playing against Barbican 4 and CL1. We were outrated, and we had, unfortunately, we did lose that match. I did actually turn up a little bit late because my car broke down on the way down, so didn't have the best of starts. But I think one of the key games from that match was actually one of Jack Rudd's games. He was playing against Matthew Turner, who's Grandmaster, and Jack managed to get a draw against him, which is a really good result. Although I'm pretty sure that Jack sometimes wants to beat these players as well, and he's very capable of doing so. Here's the position actually. After only 17 moves have been played, and it looks like quite a normal position. You can see that obviously both sides have got their knights and bishops developed. There's a little bit of tension in the centre between these two pawns, and rooks have been developed, so the kings are relatively safe. Black's actually just played this move, king to h7, and it starts to get a little bit spicy now, because first of all Jack starts it off with h4, and then all of a sudden it just gets absolutely crazy. I remember looking at this position in a few moves' time, thinking, what on earth is going on here? So pawn takes pawn, bishop takes d5, he takes here, and now Black doesn't recapture, because obviously Jack's got a knight and rook defending the pawn, so therefore Black plays knight g4, which allows his bishop to attack the pawn, as well as this knight to also attack the pawn too. So it's quite easy for him to win this pawn back. But Jack continues his attack with h5, and of course this pawn here is now pinned by this bishop. So he's and it just goes absolutely mental. So Black takes the knight, takes the pawn check, then takes the bishop back, knight takes pawn, king g2. Now Jack actually wants to play this move, king to g2, to defend this pawn, but also for a different reason, because after knight c5 he plays rook h1, and it's like, hang on a minute. It was only like about 6 or 7 moves ago we had all of these pawns and all these pieces on the board, and just look at the position now. It looks absolutely crazy. There's millions of tactics going on, especially on this pawn, even on this pawn, and maybe White's king could be in some sort of danger here as well if the f3 pawn goes somehow. And the game finally concludes cd3. And here Jack chose to play bishop takes h6, and his queen went, and here Matthew offered Jack a draw, and I think Jack thought about it and accepted, because obviously White's got a discovered check with his bishop, so I assume that he's going to play bishop g5 check to reclaim the queen. And it's really completely unsure about who's actually winning this position. I think that Jack might end up being a pawn up at the end of all the exchanges, but it's going to be doubled f pawns, and so it's going to be difficult for him to convert that sort of win. So I can't blame him for accepting the draw in that position. I think it's perfectly fine. There are some quite interesting lines though from this position. So many different discovered checks that he could possibly do, and really, if you're playing in the position like this in an actual game, you don't actually know what's going through somebody's head. I mean, I can see some sort of idea of some sort of like mating threats. If you can somehow get this bishop on this diagonal, maybe even reroute this bishop to here, and then come to this square onto this diagonal to checkmate the black king. I think it's all rubbish, but you need a computer to actually tell you that it's not very good. But that's one of the best results from the first round, and it's Jack's draw against Matthew Turner. So well done, Jack, for that result. We ended up losing the match. I think the score was, well, I'll show you the scores. 5.5, 2.5. The only win that we got was John Redmond on the bottom board, so well done, John. And Kash and Sven got draws as well. We were outgraded, so we were expected to lose that match. However, we just sometimes think that we're a little undergraded, especially on those top 3 boards. We can definitely undergrade and capable of performing at a very high level. And as are the rest of us as well. So a bit disappointed that we lost 5.5, 2.5, but it wasn't really a complete disaster. I mean, we kind of knew that it was something like that. Our second team, as you can see, lost 6.5, 1.5 to Gonzaga. They were very heavily outgraded. However, big mention to Andrew Gregory, who got the victory against Gordon Freeman, outrating him by over 200 points there. So well done, Andrew. And Matthew coming up with a draw as well. So well done to those two players. And that takes us on to round 2, which was quite an interesting affair. And here I've got, I think, an example of a really strong game that was played by one of our top players, and it was played by Tim Katz. I think it's the reason why I've chosen to put this as the main game to go through today is because I believe it's one of the key attacking games that everybody can learn from. So I'm not going to focus too much on the opening, but I'm going to stop it, or ask you to stop it at certain points to see what move would you play next. Hopefully you haven't played through the game, or hopefully forgotten it if you did watch it last time round. So Tim's white, he's graded 2206. He's playing against Andrew Burnett from Alba. They're a Scottish-based team, and he's graded 2150, so very similar in grades. And here Tim plays the gambit line. Now he's giving away a pawn, but Andrew refuses and pushes his pawn forwards, so materials equal now. But white gets an advantage in space and gets his pieces out quite quickly. Notice how he's developing his knight here to a3. Just so it doesn't block this bishop in, because the other square for it was on d2, but he really wants this bishop to come out, obviously not to h6, but somewhere along that diagonal. Obviously brings it to g5, black castles, and we get quite, I would assume, a fairly normal position. I don't play this line specifically, but I would say that white's got a space advantage, a slight advantage in the game at the moment. His pieces are all out, whereas black's still got this bishop at home. This c8 bishop, which is the curse of many openings. I mean, I play the French, although I personally like that bishop. But white's knight is a bit out of play here, and it's not easy for white to make progress. Queen c7 allows the knight to come in, and then he plays queen b8 here. So this is the kind of like the first thing where you need to think what you're gonna do to continue the attack if you are white in this position. So stop the video now. Have a look at the position. What would you play here as white? How did Tim continue or start the attack for him? So have a think about it. See what you come up with. Because black's just played queen to b8, which is quite an interesting redevelopment, because his queen was on d8 and now he's rerouted it to c7 and then to b8 for a reason. I think he's going to gain tempo by moving these pawns up and gain some space on the queen side. You've obviously had a think now, so after pausing the video. So white actually played in this position, g4, and he takes advantage of the fact that this knight is now pinned by the bishop to this bishop, because the queen's no longer on d8 defending the bishop on e7. So it's a really nice aggressive move, and I'm not surprised that Tim played it. That's how Tim plays, and I really like the fact that he plays like that. And he's basically just going for his throat now. He's really going for the attack. He's committed to this kingside pawn advance, and you can tell that this pawn's just going to come to g5 as soon as possible. Black plays knight e5, and so he's trying to trade off white's attacking pieces. So this knight could become an attacking piece, this bishop could become an attacking piece. G5 obviously comes straight next move, and then he plays knight takes, queen takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and now black plays a6, attacking the knight on b5. So this is your second opportunity to see what would you play here for white. So pause the video again, have a little think, see what you would do here if you were in white's shoes. You've opened up your own king on the g file, but you've also got rid of this h6 pawn, and a couple of knights have been traded. How are you going to continue this attack as white? Remember that your knight on b5 is attacked by a pawn. Okay, so you've had a think. So in typical attacking aggressive style, Tim plays e5. He completely ignores that the knight on b5 is under attack, and he says, instead of defending, I'm going to defend by attacking you. So if he's obviously threatening the knight on f6, and if this knight drops, it's a key defender of black's position. There's probably going to be some sort of mate on h7 that happens. So, you know, a really good aggressive move. Forces black to kind of recapture the pawn. And then he just plays queen h3. So now, okay, he's still not moved the knight. and he's just going to threaten to do bishop takes knight and then queen h7 checkmate. That's quite a simple threat, but it's very effective. And what's key here is that I think actually his opponent actually plays it really quite well, because it's very difficult for him to play these past few moves. And usually what happens is you find yourself getting checkmated or losing some material, and then it's just easily winning for white in this position. But he really makes Tim fight for this, and it might be lost at this position, but actually I think it's probably level. But it's just really difficult to defend. And I really want you to take note of how white wins this game in the end. Rook d8 gets played, bishop h7 check. Remember this queen moving from this d8 square that was defending this bishop? That's the key thing here. This bishop is still pinned by this bishop here. So it's absolutely, this check here is such an aggressive move. But this knight, this pin along this diagonal has just been killing black all the way through this game. Plays king f8. You can have a look at the lines after knight takes, that's up to you. King f8 is played, takes with check, takes back. Rook d1 to bring the last piece into the attack, although I guess you could argue this knight's not part of the attack, it's more of a distraction. He takes the knight, check, king e7, queen d3, defending the rook, but everything's pins. Black's king's in the centre of the board, and 1, 2, 3, still at home. He does try and make an attempt to get some pieces out though, and quite simply, all he does is take the pawn on g7 that's defending this knight. Black snaffles another pawn, bishop g6, check, king g2, and now there's no defence to rook takes pawn check, and then picking up the piece, and white's just going to be a piece up. I think that's a really aggressive game that Tim's played there. I think it's important to note that he's not won by checkmating, although there might be a forced checkmate here somewhere. He might have to give up more material than the knight. Yeah, actually, I think he does. But it's a long-winded checkmate. He didn't foresee this position when he played g4, g5 at the start. And I mean, he was hoping to checkmate on h7. He didn't expect the king to come all the way to e7 before he starts to round it up. So a really nice attacking game by Tim. I think relatively good defense by Andrew. He can't have any complaints of losing to an attacking game like that. So my personal game of the weekend nomination or vote goes to Tim Kep for this win, which was a really close match against Alba as well. The West's best one team were in Division 1, and we're really fighting to survive as always. And Alba's a team that we beat at the first round of last season, and this season I'm afraid that they got the better of us in the second round, and they actually came out 4.5, 3.5 winners. Which was really unlucky for us. I think a couple of games could have gone differently. You see we've got a host of draws in the centre, and then Tim won, lost top 2 boards. Sven's game could have gone either way, and John managed to fight through with some aggressive games to actually get the win, but unfortunately we ran out second best overall against Alba, which isn't too bad. We've still got plenty of games to get it back. And plenty, I think, this weekend coming. We're going to be playing against White Rose and North East of England. So I'm really looking forward to those matches, because they're two teams that I believe that we can definitely get points against. As you can see, West's best 2, they also lost their game 5.5, 2.5. As you can see, Alex scored at the weekend. He got half a point, as did 4 others as well. Well done to Alice on her debut for 8.5 a point against quite a massive rating gap there. Between the two opponents on the bottom board. But unfortunately, both West's best 1 and West's best 2 lost both their matches. Big shout out to John Redmond for his 2 victories, star of the show so far, and currently winning the Ben Edgeler Prize for the most draws in the competition would be Katarzyna Toma, vastly undergraded. I think she's playing in some tournaments which dropped her rating a bit lower than it should be. She's very easily capable of playing over and above 2300 level, managing to get 2 draws on board 3 for us, an absolute godsend for us. So well done to you. Currently the leader of the Ben Edgeler Prize in the top 2 teams. Apart from that, thanks very much for watching. Best of luck to the 2 teams. We start our round 3 and round 4 matches in just over a week's time on Saturday the 12th. And our first match on Saturday will be at 2 o'clock. If you want to follow us on chess24.com, and Sunday at 11 a.m. On chess24.com as well. You can follow the matches live. But apart from that, thanks very much for watching, and I'll give you an update after rounds 3 and rounds 4.